The 4 women you become every month. Ladies, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a week where you felt like you could conquer the world? You wake up early, your mind is sharp, words come easily. You want to socialize, make plans, start projects, answer emails, solve problems. You feel like, yes, I've got this. And then, a couple of weeks later, you want everyone to leave you alone. The noise feels louder. Your patience is shorter. You notice things you normally tolerate. You suddenly need more rest. And you might even wonder, what happened to me? Well, maybe nothing happened to you. Maybe you are simply experiencing something your body has been doing all along. You are not biologically identical every day of the month. Your hormones rise, they fall, they communicate with your brain. They influence your reproductive system, your energy, your emotions, your appetite, your sleep, and the way you experience the world. And once you understand that rhythm, you may stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what is my body telling me? Welcome back to BTS Africa Media. I am your host, the Social Architect. Today, we're going somewhere fascinating. We're going inside the menstrual cycle. Not the version that was reduced to, you're just moody because you're on your period. And not the version that tells women they should somehow behave the same way every single day. We're going deeper. Underneath what we casually call a period is an extraordinary conversation between the brain, the ovaries, the uterus, and the rest of the body. And this conversation begins long before you see blood. It begins inside your brain. Imagine a tiny command center sitting deep inside your brain. It is called the hypothalamus. You don't need to remember the name. Just think of it as one of the body's control rooms. The hypothalamus sends out a chemical messenger called gonadotropin-releasing hormone, in short, GnRH. Think of it as a sequence of signals, almost like a drummer. Those signals reach another small but powerful structure called the pituitary gland, and the pituitary responds by releasing 2 important hormones, follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH. These hormones travel to the ovaries, and that's when the real monthly story begins. FSH helps ovarian follicles develop. One follicle eventually becomes dominant. That follicle produces increasing amounts of estrogen, which helps prepare the reproductive system for possible pregnancy. When estrogen reaches the right level for long enough, something dramatic happens. The brain and pituitary essentially receive the message, we're ready. And the pituitary responds with a powerful surge of LH that helps trigger ovulation. An egg is released. After that, the emptied follicle transforms into something called the corpus luteum, which begins producing progesterone. If pregnancy doesn't occur, estrogen and progesterone eventually fall. That hormonal decline helps trigger menstruation. Then the cycle begins again. It is a remarkable feedback system. The brain talks to the ovaries talk back to the brain, and your uterus responds to the entire conversation. This is why your menstrual cycle isn't simply about bleeding. It is a whole body hormonal rhythm. But what does this have to do with you? This is where it gets interesting. Although every woman doesn't experience the cycle in the same way, hormonal changes can influence how you feel. This includes your sleep, appetite, body temperature, energy, and mood. For some women, symptoms such as irritability, anxiety, sadness, cravings, or fatigue can become particularly noticeable before menstruation. Instead of imagining the menstrual cycle as one woman behaving the same way for 28 days, I want you to imagine something different. Imagine that your body moves through 4 different chapters, not 4 personalities, rather 4 changing biological landscapes. We're going to give each landscape a character. Character 1, the architect. The story begins with blood. The first day of menstrual bleeding is considered day 1 of the cycle. At this point, estrogen and progesterone have fallen, and because those hormones are no longer maintaining the uterine lining, that lining begins to shed. This is menstruation. But here is the part I want you to remember. Your body is not failing. It is not shutting down. It is beginning again. The first chapter of the cycle doesn't begin with maximum energy. It begins with release. And for many women, this is a time when they naturally want more quiet, more sleep, more solitude, and less stimulation. But we live in a culture that often rewards constant output. Answer the message, attend the meeting, go to the gym, be productive, keep smiling, keep performing. So when your body says, slow down, you may interpret that message as weakness. But perhaps the better question is, What if rest is part of the rhythm? This is why I call this phase the architect. Character 2, the catalyst, the follicular phase. Now something begins to change. FSH stimulates follicles in the ovaries. One eventually becomes dominant. And as that follicle develops, estrogen rises. This is where many women begin to notice a shift. Perhaps you feel lighter, more energetic, more interested in people, more ready to start things. Your body is moving from the quiet opening chapter toward expansion. And estrogen isn't just about reproduction. Estrogen receptors are found throughout the brain and body, and hormonal fluctuations can influence brain function and emotional processing. But here's an important distinction. Science does not say that estrogen magically turns every woman into a super confident productivity machine. Bodies are more complicated than that. Your sleep, stress, nutrition, health, environment, personality, and circumstances all matter too. Still, this phase can be a useful time to notice your own patterns. Maybe this is when you find yourself saying, "Let's start that project. Let's make the plan. Let's call her. Let's finally do this." That is why in our story, she becomes the catalyst. The woman who gets things moving. Character 3, the sovereign. And then comes the dramatic turning point. It changes the feedback signal to the brain and pituitary. The result is a surge of luteinizing hormone, and roughly a day and a half later, ovulation occurs. The dominant follicle releases an egg. This is one of the most important events in the entire cycle. But there's something else fascinating. Around ovulation, some women report changes in sexual desire, social behavior, or mood. Hormonal changes may contribute. But again, this isn't a universal script. Your body is not following a Hollywood screenplay. It is responding to a complex combination of biology, environment, relationships, stress, sleep, and individual differences. So don't worry if you don't suddenly feel like the most magnetic woman on earth. There is no prize for matching the textbook. But as a metaphor, this is our sovereign. She is outward-facing, expressive, ready to engage with the world. And then, the story changes again. Character 4, the alchemist. After ovulation, the follicle that released the egg doesn't simply disappear. It transforms. It becomes the corpus luteum. And this temporary structure begins producing progesterone. Progesterone helps prepare the uterus in case pregnancy occurs. It also has effects on the brain. Think of it simply as a substance produced from progesterone that interacts with the brain's GABA system, one of the brain's major calming systems. This is one reason researchers are very interested in the relationship between progesterone, allopregnanolone, and premenstrual symptoms. And this is where the story becomes especially interesting, because some women are highly sensitive to the hormonal changes that happen in the late luteal phase. As the cycle approaches menstruation, estrogen and progesterone fall. For some women, that transition can coincide with significant changes in mood, irritability, anxiety, sleep, appetite, or emotional sensitivity. For others, the changes are subtle, and for some women, they are barely noticeable. There is no single female experience. But if you've ever reached the final days before your period and thought, "Why is everything irritating me?" you are not imagining that hormonal changes can affect how you feel. And if those symptoms are severe enough to interfere with your relationships, work, or daily life, they deserve attention, not dismissal as simply being moody. This is where our final character enters, the alchemist. Why? Because this phase invites you to notice. What is draining you? What have you been tolerating? Where are your boundaries? What do you actually need? But here's something important. Your late luteal emotions are not automatically the truth, and they are not automatically irrational either. They're information. Information that deserves curiosity, not shame. So, which woman are you today? And this is the part I want you to take away from this video. You are not 4 different women. You are one woman moving through a changing biological landscape. It doesn't mean you should force yourself to work less during one phase and become a superwoman during another. And it certainly doesn't mean you should blame every emotion on hormones. Instead, track yourself. Watch your patterns. When do you sleep best? When do you feel most social? When do you experience the strongest cravings? When do you feel more sensitive? When do you feel most energetic? And most importantly, what happens consistently? Your own data may teach you more than a generic cycle chart ever could. For generations, many women have been taught to think about their bodies primarily as problems to manage. The period is inconvenient, PMS is embarrassing, fatigue is weakness, needing rest is laziness. Emotional sensitivity is irrational. But what if we changed the language? What if instead of asking, how do I force my body to behave the same way every day, we asked, how does my body actually work? That is a very different question. And once you understand the rhythm, you can begin making better decisions. Knowing your body gives you more information. This is the philosophy behind my book, Lunar Mysticism, Ancient Wisdom on the Menstrual Cycle, and the Art of Coming Back to Yourself. The book explores the relationship between menstrual rhythms, women's lived experiences, ancestral knowledge, and the modern understanding of the menstrual cycle. It's about encouraging you to become curious about your own body. I also created a lunar cycle journal that helps you track your menstrual cycle alongside the moon phases. You can find both of these products through the links in the description. As the Swahili saying goes, Mwezi hauishi kuwaka. The moon never stops shining, and neither does your worth. Until next time, I am the social architect. Subscribe to BTS Africa Media.